Hi, guys. This is Bridget Cali Canales, and you are listening to the Quantum Leap Podcast.
Hello, Leapers, and welcome back to the Quantum Leap Podcast, Quantum Leap Way After Show. I'm Albie, and as with me always is Hayden.
And we have a mole in our midst.
And returning to the Quantum Leap Podcast, Quantum Leap After Show, you might remember him. He was one of our guest hosts on O Ye of Little Faith. It's the man that runs Thinking Outside the Long Box. It's Juan Morrow. How you doing, Juan?
What's going on, everybody? How are you guys doing?
Good. Welcome back. For people who might not have seen O Ye of Little Faith After Show, tell people about yourself and all that kind of cool stuff.
Well, I mean, I run Thinking Outside the Long Box, like you just said. It's a pop culture podcast that me and my buddy Doyle do now. We talk about everything geek related, movies, TV shows. We're actually listening to a podcast for the next set of episodes called Bridgewater that we'll be talking about. So I'm a BS guy since I don't know how long we've been doing this. I'll be together 10 years, something like that.
Almost 10 years, yeah, about a decade.
I started by doing.
I have a feeling you didn't mean
stuff.
bullshitters, did you?
Well,
they're in space. Well, both. Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah, both. We're a little bit of both.
Theorizing that one could time travel within his own lifetime,
and bullshit about it.
Yes, exactly. So this week we're talking about the 16th episode of the new series of Quantum Leap, Ben Interrupted. And we have a great show for you. We have some guests, including Paul McCarthy-Boyington, who played Lawrence. And we have I got to talk to a little bit earlier today, Armando McClain, who plays the Burly Nurse, the one walking around with the needle trying to inject people the whole time. That was pretty cool. So that'll be
Did you get some Botox?
I need some. Juan, first impressions of Ben Interrupted.
So I think it follows a lot of what this whole season has been. I mean, I saw a little bit of a few things on our Facebook page talking about why we didn't get a screener kind of until last minute. And obviously, spoiler alert, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later, but I'm sure it has to do with the big spoil that comes at the end. But for me, I like the show. I continue to watch. I love everything Quantum Leap, but it's a completely different thing from what it was. And so it's different. It's hard to compare, but I enjoyed the episode especially because of what I hope is to come.
Hayden, damn it, Hayden. I was sitting at home watching this episode. Of course, we didn't get the screener until like 3 hours before. So I said, why watch the screener? I'll just watch it live. And they pull out and the mole is Ziggy. And I'm like, hey,
who's the king? I picked it.
How? I don't see how. I was like, how? And you knew all along.
I'll let you in on
somehow.
a little secret.
Yeah.
I'm the mole.
Oh, see, that makes sense now. That makes sense. So besides that big reveal that you got right, that you've been preaching all season, and I did not believe you one iota, what did you think of Ben Interrupted, Hayden?
Awesome episode. It really felt like the fan wank for the Quantum Leap fans who have been waiting for everything to relate back to the original show. They mentioned the evil leapers. They essentially had kind of virtually the same episode as one of our favorite episodes, Shock Theater. Lots of other stuff was also referenced throughout. Lots of additions to the lore. We got lots of answers too, which is what we wanted. So I couldn't be happier with this episode, actually. Probably my favorite so far.
Awesome. Okay, Hayden, who wrote and directed this episode?
Well, our director was Jude Weng. Annalise Colevol Medina was our writer. Did a fantastic job. And what I really liked is it felt like something that I would have written myself. But if I had writing talent.
If you had talent. And I think the episode looked pretty. Anna A. Marti, she was director of photography of this one. It was a really beautiful episode.
Well, because of how much this one did relate back to the original series, it might be worth pointing a few things out. For starters, they did name drop the evil Leapers. You could clearly see in that file they were talking about Zoe and Thames. I don't think I read Aaliyah in there, but it doesn't really matter. Zoe's probably the more dangerous one. Makes me think there must have been some cover-ups, because apparently it took them a while to find this particular file. It had been misplaced or misfiled. I think it would make sense that they would probably hide it, because if anyone in the government knew that, there was this agency that was sending Leapers back, putting things wrong that once went right, they'd be trying to get their hands all over Quantum Leap and sending out missions to stop them, but in the process probably doing worse still. So I think it makes sense. But I'm glad they brought it up, because people have been asking, why has everyone been so surprised about there being another Leaper out there, Martinez, Leaper X, whatever it is you want to call him, and you're not getting $1 out of me. But yeah, but at least now we know the reason is because they didn't even know. It wasn't in the records. So that's, I think, a really nice development. It does make you wonder, well, what are Martinez's goals? We found out at the end that he's the one, he has a mission that he has to stop Ben, because apparently Ben is going to be getting in the way of his main mission, whatever that happens to be. It was cool actually seeing, one of them actually, make that first strike. Yeah, so at least now we know, they're dueling to kill. They'll do what they need to do. Well, at least Martinez will. I don't know if we'll see Ben do it. Ben always preaches non-violence, but sometimes soldiers still have to kill, even if their job is to save people and keep them safe. So I'm very keen to see what's coming. But what were some of your favorite aspects of the episode one?
So just going back to the kind of files that it seems like maybe this particular file was missing. You would assume, because I believe it was said at least a few times, and I was a little confused by the premise of what was happening at the end, that in the original Quantum Leap, success didn't mean anything. You still leapt. And that was a huge deal in this episode, which was a little weird. You would think that if you're writing some kind of notes and files about what's going on, that might be mentioned somewhere. But if the mole is Ziggy, maybe Ziggy is the one hiding things that might be pertinent to this team. And so I thought that was a little bit interesting, but it was like, that doesn't make any sense. They've already established that it doesn't matter if he succeeds or not. He's still going to leap. But it's interesting to think about what Ziggy might be doing to stifle what's going on with this team.
Well, that's actually a really good point, and one I hadn't thought of. So thanks, Juan. Yeah, that does make perfect sense. If Ziggy has her own motives, whatever they might be, then yeah, Ziggy's going to make visible what she allows and hide whatever she doesn't want. And and if Ziggy is absolutely determined that Ben has to do his missions and Martinez has to do his missions, then yeah, it would make sense that Ziggy would hide what they'd said before, which was that success has nothing to do with leaping. Someone on the Facebook group actually asked, why are they so concerned with completing the mission when, like you said, it was already established like that? An answer that I had was, well, all that they really know is from the data that they've collected themselves. So the only way they've seen Ben actually leap is after he completes his mission. So they've just taken the stance that, all right, that's what we're seeing is happening, so we're going to assume Ben has to complete his mission to leap. They haven't seen any evidence to the contrary yet. So until someone disproves that, apart from Ziggy, of course, they're probably just going to keep saying, Ben, you have to succeed or you won't leap. So, yeah, I really like that idea, actually, that Ziggy is the one hiding all the stuff that is going to stop Ben from doing his mission and Martinez from doing his.
So from my understanding, Leaper X Martinez is not an evil leaper. He's just from Project Quantum Leap, but from the future. So
that's what I understood too.
Why did they bring up the? I think Annalise said that also on our colleagues' friends show, the Fates Wide Wheel podcast. Check it out if you haven't seen it yet. She was on there for a little bit. They mentioned that definitely not an evil leaper, but from the future of the Quantum Leap project. So why was the information that Ian came up with that was misfiled? Why was that important to the storyline, or was that just to mislead us?
I think that it's partly like trying to appease the fans who remember the original series and are pointing out some inconsistencies that they're seeing in this one. So to hand wave it away, the writers can say, all right, well, that was misfiled. They didn't know about them. But if you want to look for an in-universe reason, it could be that Ziggy feels like maybe that information would be detrimental to their missions, perhaps. So that's the only thing I can come up with in universe. But
I think it was thrown in as a red herring as well. I think that's what its main purpose was. But it also gave them the ability to talk about, have a discussion about what Martinez's real objective was. You know, you hear one side talking about, well, he didn't stop him at this point, and then one side talking about, well, we didn't see him previous to that, so he may have done something underhanded. I think it just gave them something to talk about and to discuss at that point, because you're right, we don't really know what's going on. To us, he leaps in exactly the same way, whereas the evil leapers had a different colored leap, and it looks exactly the same way. So for me, in my head, what I thought about in the middle of this episode was, if he could see the hologram, he either doesn't need one. He's that good at just remembering and knowing where everything is and knowing what everything is, or we just haven't seen, maybe he has a hologram somewhere as well.
Yeah, well, we had a theory that maybe Jen might have been Martinez's hologram, considering how easily she kind of stepped into the role when she was the hologram in the previous episode. The other thing that was worth pointing out, like you said, is the fact that the people who leap from their own project seem to be able to see anyone in the imaging chamber, and anyone in the imaging chamber seems to be able to communicate with them. Obviously, they have changed how the observing process works. It doesn't necessarily have to be you and the hologram having the neural link now. Maybe it's the case that everyone who works at Project Quantum Leap somehow gets linked up with their brainwaves into Ziggy, so that anyone could communicate with the leaper if need be.
By the time Martinez is leaping, this is in the future. And is it possible that they've solved the problem of not being able to get back, like Sam and Ben have, and then Martinez is just like coming back, getting briefed on the next mission, and then going on another mission? That could be part of the reason why we're not seeing a hologram.
Yeah, well, it's possible. What I found kind of interesting was Janice finally revealed that in the leaps that Ben pre-programmed, he deliberately made it that there'd be 3 opportunities to stop Martinez, and that Ben had planned to sacrifice himself if he couldn't stop Martinez, just as a last resort. But with all the leaps that Ben's had to do, why did he specifically only give himself 3 chances, when he could have programmed it to be every single leap he's got a chance to stop Martinez? That I found kind of interesting as well. I think he's had to balance it a little bit, because we know he's trying to slingshot into the future as well, or at least that's what they're inferring. But yeah, I wonder why he specifically only gave himself 3 chances. You would think maybe he would want to maximize his possibility of stopping Martinez, especially if that's his ultimate goal, to stop Martinez from killing Addison, which we also now know is what he's trying to do, because Janice revealed that Martinez does kill Addison.
Yeah, they just let that slip out. That was kind of crazy.
Yeah,
it wasn't like a big reveal. It was just like a part of the conversation.
Yeah.
But
also another link back to the original show. We saw Beth again, which I thought was quite
great.
Nice. Yeah.
I'm wondering if they flew her all the way back to the United States just to answer the door. I was like, that's a very
Well,
small part for such a long flight.
I think maybe what they would have done is if they had, the foresight, they would probably have filmed that scene way, way in advance. So,
maybe that's what Susan was talking about, how they filmed scenes that they didn't use and she thought they were cut. So that might have been it.
yeah. And I think she also said she was going to be in 3 episodes, and now we've seen the 3rd one. So,
that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Georgina Riley's makeup was a little bit different, I thought, in this episode. That kind of threw me for a second than I was used to. So,
yeah. But apparently they let her out on house arrest rather than keeping her in Guantanamo Bay, which I also found a little bit risky. Maybe they kind of have buried the hatchet a little bit. It definitely seems like they're a bit more cordial to each other now and are more willing to share information and help their ultimate goals. But it still kind of seemed a bit odd that they were willing to do that. But we know now that, he's very nearly at his ultimate goal. That's why Janice finally revealed everything. What, he's in 1954 now? You need to tell me this quicker. This is his last chance. So, yeah, just
I need her more in the show, man. She brings so much energy, and it might be because she's only in a few scenes and a few episodes, but man, does she's able to steal a scene when she's on that. Yeah. Like the parallel for me, going back a little bit, when Addison is trying to get Ben to stop talking, she only kind of protests and she's kind of off to the side and she's kind of in and out. Whereas in my mind, I think Al would be right in front of Sam, trying to be like, shut up, waving his arms and doing everything he could to keep him to shut up. And I just don't get that same vibe from Addison, even though they're supposed to be lovers and soulmates and with each other. And it's weird, but I think Janice does a great job of stealing every scene she's in. I want more of her in the show.
Yeah, I'm Team Janice. We need more Jen and Janice. Team Janice.
So Jen this week, she got a credit. Narissa got a credit in the opening credits. I don't know if that's contractual, but I think we only saw her in like a 2-second flashback, right?
In the little flashback, yeah.
Yeah. Why do you think they did away with Jen in this episode? What did Magic say? She had a cough and I sent her home.
Had a cold.
You think that's something?
Well, I think it's because Jen had such a huge role in the previous episode. It seems to be that they're rotating the supporting cast, I suppose their main cast, but not the main Leaper and Hologram, the ones at the project. It seems like they're rotating them a little bit as needed, probably as a cost-saving measure. They don't need to be there every single time to move the plot forward. So if Jen's had a really big episode, then it would make sense that they'd give her a week off or something like that. That didn't bother me too much, but I do love seeing Jen on my screen, though. So it would have been nice to see her, but I don't think it hurt the show that she wasn't there.
For me, going into this, we knew that we were going to see who the mole was because of the TV guide description or whatever. But so going into it, Serenity thought it was Addison, and I thought it was going to be Jen. So not seeing Jen for most of the episode, I thought we were going to see at the end of the episode Jen doing something nefarious just to show that she is the mole, but then that didn't come about.
And also she was the first one shown in that flashback as well, wasn't she? So that also might probably the first thing that crosses your mind is, they're showing us Jen. Jen's doing something at Ziggy. Jen must be the mole. But then they show Addison. Then they show one of the technicians. And they show Ian. And
they showed
so it's like
3 background actors that they don't normally show. And I was like, is it going to be one of them? That would be silly. The woman with the hard drive from episode 1 or 2 or whatever that was.
Yeah. And the dude who helps Mason with all the programming and all that sort of stuff. So.
From the flashback montage, it looked like they were going to make it be Ian. That's what I was thinking. But maybe that was just a 2-second misdirect, so you wouldn't think Ziggy, because they didn't really show Ziggy in the flashbacks as much, except for that pullout at the end there afterwards.
Yeah. Well, here's something to think about. Janice came to this realization and immediately smashed her phone, and she said she realized it was Ziggy based on something that Ian said. I didn't actually catch what Ian said. What did Ian say that set her off?
Yeah, I missed that part.
I also don't. I don't know that they clearly went back to it either. I don't remember.
Ian did say something about Ziggy, but I can't for the life of me remember what it was, and it didn't actually seem that innocuous. So I'm just wondering what it was that Janice heard that made her realise. I never thought that Ian was going to be the mole because Ian was the one who leapt back to set Ben on this path. So Ben should be the one we eliminate first, unless Ben's doing this for their own nefarious purposes. But I just didn't see that happening. It would have been interesting, and we find out that Ben's actually the anti-hero, the one who's stuck doing the bad things. But I don't think they would ever go that way with Quantum Leap, though. Goes against
that might be why they mentioned the evil leapers, though. So I don't know. So Ziggy turns from like blue and white LEDs to red LEDs. So
yes,
like does Ziggy comprehend that red is a bad color in storytelling, or how does that work? You know, because
they try turning it off and on again.
I am so excited for the Ziggy evil monologue. I am so excited to hear what comes from that. I don't know why, but at this point, Ziggy has been a smart ass, female computer or whatever, depending on the time in Quantum Leap. But I'm excited for it. Like, that's something it's odd because Ziggy is not like a real person, but we've all come to know that she has some kind of attitude and a little bit of spunk to her.
She does have a personality.
I'm super excited. Yeah, I'm super excited for the diatribe.
Funnily enough, some people have been posting on Facebook that Deborah Pratt is credited as Ziggy even in this new series. So I'm hoping that means we will eventually hear Ziggy in the next episode or two. I just can't wait to hear Evil Ziggy. That's just going to be so much fun.
I think in the interview with Susan that you did originally, she didn't even want to reveal how Ziggy sounded or spoke or anything. So I mean, other than Ziggy being the mole, I think there's got to be way more to come. You know, if she wouldn't even touch it at all. So I'm excited.
Yeah. And apparently, from the synopsis of the next episode, apparently they're without Ziggy. Ben has to do everything completely blind. So maybe they just shut Ziggy down knowing that Ziggy's compromised now. Or maybe they're at least trying to avoid having to use Ziggy a whole lot. So there's that possibility as well. I didn't want to get too spoilery, but I mean, the synopsis is already out there, so it's not going to affect anyone.
Those synopses, what is the plural synopsis?
Synopsi? Anyway, I don't know.
Thank you. They're a little too spoilery, I think. I think they're a little too spoilery because, they mentioned we find out who the mole is, and then they find out that the next thing is, without Ziggy, and it's like, it doesn't take too much to put two and two together.
Yeah. Well, look, I know we've been talking for quite a while about Ziggy and about Ziggy eventually being compromised. And are you really sick and tired of your quantum computing artificial intelligence machine being compromised and used for nefarious purposes? Well, our sponsor today is the Quantum Leap antivirus. If you subscribe to the Quantum Leap antivirus, then no one will ever be able to get in. You'll need to have your own keys. You'll need to have at least 5 different levels of password protection and extra codes sent to you. And look, let's just say our antivirus is really, really scary. It's going to fight off any germ that comes to it on site. If one ever does get through, it's got to be a doozy. So the Quantum Leap antivirus, get on it. You can get it for 23% off at quantumleappodcast.com.
And with that, let's go to our interview with Paul McCarthy-Boyington.
Hey, this is Matt at the Quantum Leap podcast. Tonight on the show, we have a special guest. We have with us Paul McCarthy-Boyington, who plays Lawrence in the latest episode, Ben Interrupted. Hey, Paul, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you.
So thanks for joining us. I'm going to let the listeners know, because we were talking about this off mic beforehand. Usually, we run these interviews with full knowledge of the episodes. We've usually got a press screener to hand. I'm talking to you not having seen the press screener. For whatever reason, it's not dropped this week. So we're going to run the interview as normal. We'll have a chat about your past, and we'll have a chat about Quantum Leap. But I'm as eager to find out as anyone else what Monday night's episode is going to bring.
It makes it more fun.
By the time... Absolutely. By the time anyone sees this, you'll all have seen the episode. So I just wanted to explain to the viewers why I might be looking a little bit confused, or why I might not ask the obvious questions. So, let's start as I promised. Let's just start by asking a little bit about your background, if I can. How did you get into the business? You've done a lot over the years. Your resume is huge.
Yeah.
What got you into acting?
It's a little crazy, but I started off as a break dancer, actually. And
okay, that's a new one.
Yeah. I grew up in a breakdancing crew in San Francisco. And anyways, I started getting into dancing classes. My parents started sending me into that led to ballet and jazz and like musical theater stuff. And then I kind of got the performing bug that way. And then just started taking classes, and then really just fell in love with it. I was always playing sports though, so I was like, it's kind of fun, performing. But I'm gonna make it as a baseball player, as a basketball player, or something. And then I kept falling more and more in love with acting and performing, and I actually started directing first and making films. And then it just kind of really, really ignited my soul. I believe in high school, in like junior year, and then I kind of was like, hey, when I graduate, I'm moving down to LA, and I'm going to just give it a shot. And I started taking classes. I was taking classes already, but then I really just dived into taking all types of acting classes. And
did that? You mentioned that you started off doing some directing. Did that bug ever follow you into kind of the professional realm, or was that just your gateway drug into acting?
That was my gateway drug, but I really did think I was going to be more of a filmmaker. And hey, who knows if it'll that bug is still kind of yearning, but the performing kind of overtook that part. Maybe it's because I'm a narcissist. Maybe I just like seeing myself. I don't know what it is. Yeah. Exactly. You have to be a little bit of that. So I guess, but I started making my stepfather was a experimental filmmaker. And then also my father was a filmmaker, and my mom made films too. So I kind of was like surrounded by filmmakers, right? And I just love that part of it. And just telling, I guess it really comes from just wanting to tell stories and being a storyteller, just being part of it any way I can. And so, yeah, the acting part kind of took over because I was doing some commercials here and there. And anyways, it kind of took off from there. And just I started doing a lot of theater, and that's where I just really started falling in love with it and kind of got that bug where you're like, oh, it's like, right, I surf too. So it's like when you ride that wave, wow, you're just like, wow, I need more of that, whatever it is. I think it happens in sports. It's happened to me in sports where it's that zone. And they're always kind of chasing that zone, that vibe, So yeah.
Yeah. So you've been chasing that for some years now. Can you talk me through? Because as I say, I've checked out your resume on IMDb. You've done a whole lot. Can you talk me through a few career highlights before we go on to?
I would say one of the career highlights was to be in. I did a movie, a sci-fi thriller that was directed by the same people that did. It's called Altered, and it's the same people that directed and produced the Blair Witch Project.
All right.
Yes. And it was for Universal Studios. This was their second project after the Blair Witch Project. And it was more of a traditional studio film. And it kind of got screwed by the politics of the times at that time, studio politics, not, government politics, but yeah. And, but there's a good amount of people that enjoyed it. And I guess why I bring it up, because it was just an awesome script and experience filming that. It was only 6 characters. It's about these Southern rednecks, really, essentially, that end up capturing an alien. And then all hell breaks loose. So it's kind of like, it's really a character piece. It's not a lot of visual effects, a lot of hard effects or practical effects. I see Spectral Motion did the effects, the practical effects, which did like Hellboy and Pan's Labyrinth and a bunch of great movies. But so it was just a lot of fun. It was really like a character study a character piece that happened to have an alien, and just kind of that. Nice. So that was great. And the director, Eduardo Sanchez, who did Blair Witch Project, phenomenal. Yeah. Human, and Greg Hale, the producer, and it was just a joy coming to work every day, and we were just challenging each other every time, each and every day and moment, and it was just a bad time, meaning the best of times.
Yeah. What a great opportunity to work with those guys. Yeah. And that sounds like quite a dramatic piece. Is that the sort of role that you usually do? Yeah. Or have you been trying out different genres?
No, I have tried out different genres. I love all genres. And I've been, lucky to be in some sci-fi stuff. I was also in a film called The Human Race, who was directed by actually a English director named Paul Huff. His father's a well-known director called John Huff. But so that was a lot of fun. So I guess the sci-fi world and I guess some genre stuff definitely I've been lucky to be a part of those, but I'm kind of like all the genres, and I've been lucky to do comedy. I just actually did. I was just on the Wu-Tang Clan, an American Saga, which is on Hulu, and that's more of a drama piece. But why I mention it is my character's comedy, pretty much. Right. That was a blast. Like I just love just great characters, and whatever genre that is, I'm all about it. But it's really about the character and just being challenged. Yeah.
So, what can you tell us, or what can you tell me about the character of Lawrence? Because everything that I've seen about this episode makes it look like it's pretty dark, pretty heavy. Yeah. I'm guessing no room for comic relief.
Yeah, no, not a lot of comic relief in this. But Raymond, I always think he has a funny twist on things. So I'm sure he'll have his moments where they're funny. I mean, I remember laughing after a scene or two of what he was doing. So, but on that note, this is pretty hardcore. It takes place in an insane asylum, I would say. It does in the early 50s, 1952, I believe. And it's outside of Boston. So it kind of is like a Shutter Island-ish or One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest kind of scenario. And I kind of play the heavy of the institute. Not the heavy like physical, but more like the person that puts people online. And I'm kind of running, got the discipline. I'm putting the discipline in, let's say that.
Nice. Yeah. So talk me through that initial kind of audition process and the amount of time, if any, you had to prep before going in and suddenly finding yourself in 1952. How was that whole experience?
Yeah, well, this one happened pretty fast because it was right around New Year's when they were casting this. So I think I either auditioned for like New Year's Eve or like the day after New Year's. I don't know if it was. And anyways, I just kind of put on the gowns. I luckily I had some scrubs and just went for it. It was I love the material, and I kind of went a little psycho on it on the audition, and nice. To me anyways. And and then they called me back, and it was a fast process. Like, hey, you're doing this, and we want you. And kind of preparing for that, I read a bunch of stuff of that time period, and then also watched some stuff and kind of just got into that mindset. Yeah. And the best, because TV goes so fast, you're just like, okay, let's film. You get a little more time to digest and whatever, but you're just like, okay, I'm grabbing onto something and let's go for it. Yeah.
Nice. How long was the filming process for you? Because I know it's usually an 8-day shoot. Were you there for every day?
I believe I was there for 4 days, 4 or 5. Yeah.
4 days.
Yeah, so it was a lot of fun.
And during that time, did you get to interact with many of the other cast, whether Ray or the guest cast?
Yeah, I mostly work with Ray, but I definitely Caitlin, right? Yeah, Caitlin that plays Addison. Got to work with her, so I got to interact with her a lot, a good amount, and then the rest of the guest stars in this episode, I would say, was pretty much all. I think 2 or 3 other actors. Oh, and the Martinez, I believe Walter Perez, right?
Yes.
Yeah. He's a cool dude. Yeah, everybody was so nice. And like I said, I mean, I got to really work mostly with Raymond, and he's just a gentleman of a human. Yeah, he was great.
Yeah, everyone says that.
He's just
seems like such a nice guy.
Easy, just nothing phases him.
Yeah. I didn't realize you got to work with Walter, and I've got to ask because Walter's one of the few people that we've not been able to track down for an interview.
Okay.
So maybe I can just live vicariously through you for a minute and ask what was it like interacting with him? What was what can you tell us about that?
He's another great dude. He actually moved to El Paso during the pandemic, so we kind of talked about that. He grew up in LA, and him and his wife moved out there just to get more space, and and he loves it. He kind of like I thought I was moving to like maybe Austin or San Antonio or something. We ended up in El Paso. I'm kind of like, this is a groovy little place, and I think he just loves the space and the quiet and the craziness of LA. He doesn't. I don't think. I don't want to speak for him, but it seemed like he doesn't miss as much. But he comes out all the time. Anyways, just like a really, really solid dude that was just all about the work, but also in that same way that Raymond is. It's just kind of like, hey, let's just play and let's have fun and let's not go to it's not a life and death situation. Let's just do the best we can and let's challenge each other.
That fun aspect really interests me because, as I say, from what I've seen from the trailer and from the publicity photos, it does seem like such a heavy episode.
Yeah.
Was that something that you felt? Was there an atmosphere on set that was trying to combat that a little bit,
yes,
just to try and offset the edge for the performers?
Yes, because I think it's just like you said, it's such a heavy episode. Just that the asylum is just such a crazy time period, and I know there are still I don't know enough, but I know there's current institutions that are similar to that, not as severe as they were in the 50s, but it's just it's a tough experience because all the background actors were great too. And they were just going for it. And people were screaming and going nuts. So it makes you cringe, And so that really gives you the vibe of it. So it's intense. So I think after in between takes, we would just do our best to kind of just have fun and relax and kind of, see the humor
Deflate.
in it. Yeah. There's like a kind of a Frankenstein kind of ordeal too in one of these scenes. I mean, the sets were unbelievable. The art direction is just so beautiful and just amazing, and the detail was incredible. Yeah. So it was a great time. I hope I answered your question right there.
Yeah, you did, and more. So yeah, are there any scenes? Again, this is me asking, not having seen the episode, so I'm talking quite broadly here. But are there any scenes that particularly challenged you as an actor? That's
yes.
For someone that had seen the episode, you'd want to talk through a little bit in more detail.
Yes.
In terms of your approach.
Well, I got to say also, I haven't talked about the director. I just wanted to. It's directed by a phenomenal director, Jude Wing, and I believe this was her first episode of doing Quantum Leap. But it is, she had just unbelievable, just a control of the set. Not meaning in like a dictator way, just like she was like a samurai with like how she ran the set. It was a beautiful experience on that, and it was really all about because she comes from out of the theater, and we're actually from the same. Well, she's from San Francisco too, so that was a cool little side note that we talked about. But anyways, I'm going off track, but bringing it back to what was the question again?
Just any scenes that you had that had challenged you or that were particularly interesting.
Well, going back to her, she was very she would challenge you as an actor, which I love, And the challenging part, I think. There was a couple, but I remember I had this intense monologue. It's pretty, I think it's like a full page, and it's kind of I'm talking about the head doctor. Him and I are kind of in cahoots. And I almost, it's almost just like I look up to him, or, it's like this love affair, almost like this, my admiration. And I'm talking about him, and it's just this long, and Raymond's in a wheelchair. I'm not blowing anything because, sorry, I'm in that in between where I'm like, am I supposed to talk about it since you guys haven't seen it? But anyways, so,
everyone else will have done by the time they see this. It's only me. I don't mind being spoiled. Raymond's in a wheelchair.
Yeah, he's in a wheelchair, and we're talking, and he's kind of asking me questions about this asylum that he's, I'm kind of introducing him to. And it was just challenging on the timing of there's so much going on, if that makes sense, because it is an insane asylum. You're reacting to all this stuff, but just staying on track and just trying to communicate about this almost, this doctor, and also the place, and communicating that to Raymond, but also holding on to that the character of my character has, a deep past. They were in the war together, him and the doctors. So yeah. So I guess that makes sense. But the challenging part was just the timing of all that, and getting it, physically doing it, and just the array of things happening, and getting down to the guts of the performance. I guess that's what I really wanted to communicate. Yeah.
So that past that you had with the doctor, was that with the head doctor, was that something that you had the opportunity to work on with the actor that was playing him? Was that something you built together?
No, unfortunately not. Because he was, we did get to work together, but he was, kind of just scheduling really played part of that. But we did it as much as we could, in between takes and stuff. So that's also a challenge where you're like, you want to build that relationship, but we did do it in our own way, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. It always amazes me how, with the speed that network shows turn around, how actors can build these relationships on screen that look completely lived in, and like there's something that's been happening for years. I like to ask those questions because I'm just interested in how you managed to just
and that was a big challenge. But that's kind of the fun of it, and you just kind of like got to go accept it, and you just you fall into that part where you're like, hey, well, we're connecting, and I have a built past in my head, or and you go into belief. So yeah.
The more you're talking about this, the more excited I am to see the episode, which is such an unusual experience for me doing these. Can I just ask? This is going back to the start a little bit in terms of the audition process. Have you been following the new series? Were you aware of what you were getting into when you took the role? Yeah, well, a little bit. I knew it was out, and I had seen some promos, but then when I found out the audition, I started watching it, and I think it's awesome. I mean, I love the Quantum Leap from the 90s. I'm like, yes, they're bringing this back, and I heard. Yes. And I'm just nostalgic about that. And that was just like a great show. And I was just so happy that they're this reboot that I think is pretty awesome. And I was just happy to be part of that. Yeah. Yeah. And I was like, I'm just like happy to be reading for it. I'm like, this is so awesome. And then to actually be a part of it, I'm like, yeah. Yeah, a lot of people are very happy that it's back. So yeah, I'm excited for you that you're a part of it. Have you been following along? You said you kind of caught up a little bit with the series. Have you been following along with the Martinez storyline? Did that mean anything to you when there's this? Because I gather he's a bit of a bigger part in this episode. Yeah. He's yeah. So I guess I can tell you, he actually takes over me. If that, he leaps into me,
And so there's a lot of friction in between those two, him and Raymond's character.
Interesting. Okay. I've got a couple of quick questions for you then. Just in terms of your work with Walter, then, did you do any work with him in terms of like characterization? And I'm assuming you might have done a mirror shot with him and things like that, so that you were playing his reflection. Yeah. Did you have to do a lot of that kind of physical prep with him?
Yes.
To get that together. What was that like?
It was fun. I mean, it's like, I feel like he had a little bit of breakdancing skills in him too. I feel like it came very natural, and like there was like just a body. We talked briefly about it, but I think just kind of we were in cahoots. You kind of figure out, okay, this is what's going on. Okay, let's do it. And hey, nobody said that sucked, or nobody said, they're just like, oh, that's great. Let's do another one or whatever. But yeah, we talked about it, and we didn't want to go too heady on it, I guess. Unless we were screwing up, of course. But yeah,
of course. Did you have once Martinez had leapt into your character? Did you have much to do playing Martinez in some way, whether it was as a mirror or as a point of view shot or anything like that? Did you effectively have to play a second character?
Yeah, no, I mean, more just on a reflection or a couple things, but more I would say he pretty much takes over my role. Yeah. So that's so cool about Quantum Leap that it does that too, right? It's like,
Yes. Yeah, very unique in that regard. And what a cool opportunity to play. Before we move to sort of talking about things you've got coming up in the future, is there anything, really broad question here, but I've got to ask because I'm running a bit blind here. Is there anything that I've not touched on that's interesting about your experience on the show? Anything you want to share with the Leapers?
Well, I did.
I might have.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's just I guess what I would talk about is, this didn't get to happen, but I was hoping. I had worked with Ernie Hudson in the past. We did a Western together. Class act of human too. Great guy. Yeah. I mean, just unbelievable. And I was so hoping to work with him, but his days were different than mine. I was like, Yeah. So Ernie Hudson would have been that was a little tidbit for me or something that I was excited that didn't happen. But watching it, I love Ernie Hudson. And then also going back, another little connection here is from the pilot. I believe it was that second episode, but I believe it's a pilot because that's to be continued, right? In the 90s version of Quantum Leap.
Oh yes,
there's the guy that plays Scott Bakula's father, Newell Alexander. I've worked with him.
Yeah.
Like two or three times. Yeah. No, I've worked with three projects. Yeah. And we did a Western together actually too. Anyways, he's another great human being and just the biggest heart. Him and his wife, they're both great performers. And to watch that, because I was rewatching, the original episodes, and I was like, what a great, and I love that scene. The father, son on the phone, and it's like, it's heartbreaking.
It's such a beautiful moment, and they both play it so well. And then somewhere along the line, when I don't know if you remember it, one of the later episodes, Sam leaps back into his young self, and they decide instead of getting that guy back, they get Scott Bakula in heavy makeup to play his own father. Oh, never mind. It was a choice. It was a choice. Let's just say that it was a decision they made. But that's amazing to hear you work with him, and so good to hear that he's a nice guy. We've never spoken to him on the show.
He's a gem of a human. So I hope you get to talk to him, and also I'm sure you've talked to probably Ernie, right?
Yes, we spoke to him quite early on in the series, so he didn't have too much he could say, but we had a lovely half hour with him, and he came across as so genuine. There's a lot of very nice people involved in Quantum Leap.
I think it's just like everybody's so, they're having such a good time. I mean, It's just it's a great show. It's a awesome world that they've created. And then who doesn't? I mean, I'm so jealous. Raymond gets to go into all these different time periods. I'm like, God, you're so lucky. You got to go be a cowboy. You got to go into the future. You got to go. Oh my God, it's like an actor's dream. Yeah.
This has been fantastic. I'm quite amazed at how much has come out, considering that the lack of balance here with what I know versus what you know. But perhaps before we completely wrap up, you could let the Leapers, the viewers and the listeners know where else they can find you. If you've got any other projects on the go that we can look out for you in throughout the year.
Well, I guess I mentioned it earlier. As a few days ago, I was just on the Wu-Tang Clan, the musical group, An American Saga, which is on Hulu. It's on the 3rd season right now. Hulu? Yeah. I play Old Dirty Bastard's manager. Quite a wild character. Yeah. So that was a lot of fun. And then I have a movie that's called Borderlord. It's actually it's a short, but it's a modern Western that we shot in New Mexico, and that will be coming out soon. And that's about it. I have a movie, a sci-fi movie called Renko that was shot in Spain with Javier Bardem's brother, Carlos Bardem. Yeah, I play a bounty hunter. He plays a guy tracking me down, also a bounty hunter. And I'm hoping that's awesome. Supposed to come out at sometime this year too. Yeah, so that's called Renko. So that's pretty much what
You're busy then.
Yeah, luckily. Okay. Yeah. So that's been going pretty well. Yeah. And what's fun for me is it's an array of characters. And that's lucky. I feel super fortunate on that. It's just very challenging in the best of ways. And it goes against, luckily I don't get caught in the box. And with these roles, so a lot of fun.
Well, Paul, it has been a lot of fun talking to you. Yeah. So thank you for sharing everything you've been able to share. We know now where to keep an eye out for you over the next few months or so. And thank you so much for your time today, talking to me and to the fans.
Hey, thank you, Matt. I appreciate it. Thank you for interviewing me, and this is awesome that you're doing this. And what a beautiful show to have this podcast about. I really appreciate you interviewing me.
And we're back. How about that interview? That was pretty cool. It was cool to find out his background. He's a breakdancer. They should have used that in the episode somewhere. The orderly is pushing Ben in the wheelchair, and all of a sudden he does a spin on his head and then gets back up and keeps pushing.
Well, that would only work if Addison came up with an alphabet rap.
Yeah, there was no alphabet rap. I thought there was going to be a number rap this time. There was no rap whatsoever. Yeah.
Well, also there were a lot of mentally ill people in that insane asylum, but from what we saw, nobody saw Ben or Martinez or Addison. So,
I didn't put that together.
Does it work differently now with who can actually see the Leaper and the hologram?
So. What did you think about the Leap itself, the mental institution storyline? Who was it last week that mentioned that they thought in the teaser, in the Leap In, that the woman next to Ben was acting?
I think that was me.
Yeah, I think that was you, Hayden. So how did you nail that too? I think you have sources that you're not sharing with me.
I'm a psycho.
Yeah. So this episode focused more on lobotomies and things of that nature than shock therapy. So they changed it up a little bit from shock theater. What did you think about this whole mental institution Leap, Juan?
I thought it was okay. The evil kind of doctor guy I really enjoyed, actually, from Suits. That's immediately where I remembered him from. The one drawback that I saw, though, I thought the whole scene, they did a really good job of making it look creepy, of the crazy people around screaming and kind of doing the thing. I mean, but we've all had crappy nights where we don't sleep. Something's going on. I was up with the baby for 17 hours of the night, and I don't wake up in like a delusion kind of crazy like after one night. Like that was not too believable to me, but I think as far as like visuals and sets and how they staged it, it looked really good. It was a good episode for that stuff.
Yeah. Well, we don't actually know how long these people were there. Like if it had been a long period of time, then yeah, it would make sense that they get into their own delusions. We've even seen something like that in the original series as well, like in the trilogy. Laura, who essentially was committed after Violet died, and even though she didn't really have anything wrong with her due to the stigma, they locked her away, and then she became insane. So I think that has been a part of it as well. Even we don't know how long Judith even had been in there for. I mean, yeah, maybe the sister might have been acting quickly, but it could still have even been a few months. And
I was specifically just talking about Ben because it seemed like it was an overnight thing.
Okay.
But the rest of the characters did great. I definitely could see if you're being locked up around this all of the time, it's going to drive you even crazier than you might have already been. Yeah. But for Ben specifically, I don't buy that he was like delusional over one night, but who knows? So
was it your impression that he didn't sleep? I don't think they showed him sleeping at all. They alluded to he would be able to sleep. I think that's what Addison was saying. But then she like dipped and then she was back, and it looked like he hadn't slept all night. But maybe he's not tired. Who knows?
Well, I think they mentioned in a previous episode too that even though Ben doesn't really get a chance to sleep on the leaps, the person he's leapt into is sleeping, and so that's keeping him refreshed. So maybe I'm sure Ben might like to sleep, but he might not actually be able to.
So maybe sleep is a necessity of the physical brain and not the consciousness. Maybe.
Perhaps.
I think Annalise did really good writing this episode because she had a lot to do. Besides telling a good story, she had a lot of like loose ends to tie together to get us towards the finale of season 1. Like all the different threads she had to intertwine to make it all work and make sense going forward for Judgment Day, which will be the season finale after Flying the Friendly Skies. But I like that just almost mentioned in passing why Judith was in there, multiple miscarriages, and then she just couldn't do it anymore. And, in the 1950s, women still weren't really treated as full sentient beings with agency. So her husband just put her in a mental institution, which is stuff that happened back then.
Had her diagnosed with hysteria. Yeah.
Yeah, hysteria.
Well, it was very much what happened in that time. And women who were diagnosed with hysteria were treated really horribly. I don't know if you've ever seen QI but one of my favorite shows apart from Quantum Leap, but they were talking about like women who were diagnosed with hysteria were basically what's the right word I should use? Not molested, but it was what's the word I should use?
Misdiagnosed?
They were generally sexually assaulted by their doctors because they believed that hysteria could be cured with orgasms. So if you have that kind of knowledge as well, it makes you wonder what Judith's actually had to go through since being committed. Because I reckon that evil doctor probably would have been doing everything under his... he would have been doing everything that he felt like he was entitled to do, all in the name of science and their health and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, so I really felt bad for Judith in this episode, and I'm glad she did get out and get away, and that we actually saw again at the end of the episode. We didn't get the big wrap up with Addison telling Ben everything that he's managed to change. Ben leapt, and then they had the little bit of the epilogue where Magic and Janice were discussing all the things that had changed. So it's interesting that they're kind of going down that path now as well. I mean, it's not bad. I'm not putting it down or anything. It's perfectly fine. It's just interesting they're doing it now. So but trying to get back to a coherent thought. So I did feel bad for Judith, knowing a lot of the stuff that women who were diagnosed with hysteria did have to go through, especially since I think it's been, essentially disproved now of it even being a real illness. It's just a label they gave to people that they couldn't control. And it's all over stuff that she didn't really have any control over anyway. She just couldn't carry a baby to term. And after going through that sort of trauma, of course she's not going to want to have to go through it again. So
I don't know how to talk about this with as much finesse as maybe I should, but even now, even in today's society, I know because I have 2 kids. I don't know what your guys' thoughts or knowledge of this is, but miscarriages are something that happen a ton when you're trying to have a baby. Like, it's very common, and there's still not a lot of help, or there's still not a lot of avenues that people take to seek the help that maybe they don't know they need. And so even now it is hard to go through something like that. So, I don't know if there's numbers or something where you could reach out to somebody, but it's even now, it's something that we should be careful with a lot of people who are trying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not a subject that people talk about. It's difficult.
Right.
Before we had Serenity, we had a miscarriage, and that was rough. That was very rough. Yeah. I think I spoke about it a little bit with the director of Salvation or Bust, because he did a movie that incorporated that whole thing, which I thought they did beautifully, because you don't often see that. But and that's even today in 2023. I mean, it's not a subject you talk to, really. I mean, I guess your closest friends you share when they support you, but other than that, it's just not mentioned. It's swept under the rug. So that happening back in the 50s, it had to be so much worse, I would think, because back then, I mean, what, pregnant women couldn't be on television, so, and couldn't talk about that, and so it's rough. But I really appreciated how Annalise put all those things together in this episode.
Yeah.
Okay, and I did like the just how the episode did progress during the leap. It's one of those. I thought it might have been a bit more dramatic, like Shock Theatre had been, but ultimately it was a very good leap story. I do like the fact that Addison was able to convince Martinez to work with Ben and say, you know what, you probably could knock them out and you probably could overpower 1 or 2 of them, but if you can do it by non-violent means, then you're far more likely to be successful. And like that, they're alluding to, your enemy's enemy is your friend. Sometimes you might even have to work with a hostile other party if you're trying to meet the same ends. But then obviously you have to make sure that you don't get double crossed towards the end, as we saw they did. But ultimately they were both successful because Ben did manage to leap. We didn't actually see a leap out, did we?
No, I don't think we did.
No, I don't think we did.
Well,
so
Ben,
I think
we saw Ben leap out in the car.
Yeah,
we didn't see
what I meant was
we didn't see
who Ben leapt into, like the preview for the next episode. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but what they seem to be implying is that the leap will heal him. At least we would hope so. So that's why they're like, keep him alive for 5 more minutes, keep him alive for 4 more minutes, for 3 more minutes, and all of that. And the acting between Caitlin and Raymond in those final scenes where Ben was essentially dying and Addison gets told, we've seen you save so many people without having to lay a finger on them. You can do it one more time. And the fact that she was able to get that across to Ben as well and say, you're going to do this, you're not going to give up, you're not going to pass out, or all that sort of stuff. And really great acting by Caitlin as Addison. Really great acting by Raymond as Ben. I really felt like he was dying and that he was, really struggling to hang on to the slightest bit of life. And the part where they had to cauterize his wound, that was really quite shocking to watch. But yeah, made perfect sense, and it saved the day. Yeah, so I just thought that was a really great final couple of minutes.
For me, the Martinez team up with Ben, it just seemed too quick for me, and I was like, what? After all this, they're just like working together. After like 2 minutes of negotiations, they're all on the same team, and I just like, it was just too quick for me, and I didn't buy it. And it was like the main nemesis of the whole season in the space of 30 seconds now is on team Ben, and it just seemed a little too quick for me. Like maybe if there had been like a look from Martinez, like that only we knew, that Ben and Addison didn't know. I don't know. It was too quick for me.
Well, the ticking clock, I think, helped out a lot there. They only had that very small window where they would be able to help Judith escape. And that was ultimately what both of their missions were. So I didn't so much mind that, because of the fact that, they had that much pressure applied to them. You sometimes do have to think really quickly in those cases. So that didn't really bother me too much. In all honesty, nothing really bothered me about this episode. I think this is the first one. I think this is also the first time that Albie's criticized anything, and I've had nothing bad to say.
I think after watching the end of the episode, Martinez says something to the effect of, "I was supposed to take you out the next time I saw you," and then he stabs him. I think especially knowing he's a soldier, in that time, I think it gave him the idea of like, okay, this is going to put me closer to what my objective is, to take him out. And so to me, that makes it make more sense that he would be like, okay, I'm going to team up because that'll give me the opportunity to do what I need to do.
Okay. See, now I broke it and you fixed it, Juan. Thank you. Now it makes more sense in my head. It makes more sense in my head. The other thing about that is Martinez is a soldier. I think he knows how to kill someone if he needs to. He could have just as easily, he had a scalpel, he could have cut the carotid artery and he would have been dead for sure, but he stabbed him with it. He's very stabby in this episode. He's wanting to stab someone with a scalpel, but I think if he really wanted Ben dead, Ben would have been dead. So I wonder if that's a thing, or is it they just did as much as they could while still being able to save Ben?
Yeah, I think that you could also explain that away by the ticking clock, because they still had to get Judith across the bridge before anyone noticed. So again, that didn't really bother me. He just got in one last attack while he could, and then went off and finished the mission. He might have considered it to be like a little bonus.
I did love the shot. I did love the shot of Ben falling back with the blood in slow motion coming out of his artery, and it looked really cool. That looked really cool.
Yeah,
I think that looked way better than the preceding shot with him kind of fake falling. I wish it would have just been a stab and he kind of slipped, and then commercial, and then he was just on the ground. That looked, but it did. I like that shot too. Just the fake falling was weird.
A fall from that height. That could break up some bones, knock him unconscious, but he was all right. I don't know. And you know what's another thing that they mentioned? Was it Caitlin talking to Ian at headquarters that his Leap E was kind of husky, so he might not fit through the vents and be able to do a Die Hard. But when all the mirror shots of the Leap E that Ben was in, it seemed like a normal, average to thin man. So I don't know if that was an oversight or something got lost in translation there.
Maybe he's more muscular than and what's that?
I got a thin face, okay, but I'm a big dude. I got a thin face.
This is true.
My face doesn't lend me to be a bigger dude, but I'm a bigger dude.
Mm-hmm. This is true. Yes, you have a dad bod in person, but not on camera. So, that's another thing. Mirror reflection. Was this the first ever double mirror reflection done on Quantum Leap? Because we had two leapers and two leapies at one time.
No, Deliver Us from Evil had Sam and Aaliyah looking at Connie and Jimmy. There was Revenge of the Evil Leaper, where we had Zoe, Aaliyah, and Sam all looking in the mirror. I think it's probably the first time in this series, though.
Okay.
But no, we have seen multiple mirror shots at once, though.
Mm-hmm. I did like talking about the stabbing in the neck and stuff. I did like the what I thought immediately of as the Titanic ending, where Ben was dying and he had to get somebody's attention, but he couldn't really shout out. So you know how Kate Winslet blows the whistle at the end of Titanic. Yeah. That was kind of Ben reaching for the horn. So so I really did like that, but I made that immediate connection. And the other thing is, these nurses that are going into this mental hospital, it's the same mental hospital, right? Because it's on an island with a CG mental hospital. Wasn't he going to be in trouble and they were just going to kill him anyway? Well, I guess he survived. So the cops must have busted in at the last second because of the
I think that the nurses would have given him medical treatment, noticing how bad he was, and then the doctors would decide what they wanted to do. But in my head canon, in that time, they've been able to get to the police, and the police come and, you know, save everyone in there, including the Leapy, and, you know, everything ends up rosy after that. So, yeah, I think it's more the fact that because he needed more immediate medical attention, then the nurses applying it would have bided them enough time so that, you know, he's not going to end up worse off.
And they may not have known the nefarious shit that was going on in the hospital. So they may have just gone in and phoned the whatever, because they are on an island. I don't know how the police get there, but they may have just phoned emergency services not knowing what's going on as well.
Wait, were they on a... Oh, yeah, I suppose they were, because they had to get to a bridge, didn't they?
Yeah, drawbridge. So, and they showed it. And part of the reason they said that, part of the reason we heard that the episode, we didn't get the screener until a few hours before air, was the special effects were taking so long. And it was a special effects heavy episode, which is something, looking at the preview, you don't think. But I guess that whole Shutter Island looking thing was CG, kind of. And there were some shots, maybe the blood. What else would be CG in that episode? I know they had to do
They had to add the red glow to Ziggy.
turn the RGB to red. Yeah, that might have been difficult. They just couldn't figure it out on the day, so they switch it in post. So
I reckon there's a mole leaking the screeners.
Yeah, the screener actually what it was, we found out afterwards, was when they exported the press screener, it was the wrong aspect ratio, so it was kind of like zoomed in. Because I think pretty much it's like a 720 feed for the press screening, and it looked like it was a 1080p, but cropped to 720p instead of stretched. So like it basically was just showing you the inner half of the frame. So it cut out.
So it was a like 4:3 instead of the standard.
No, it was just zoomed in. It was just zoomed in.
Okay.
It was weird. Like it cut off half the credits. So you could still see the story, but it looked like one of those, I don't know, cam versions you would download on the LimeWire of a movie back in the day, you know. But they replaced it really quickly for the press screener. I think the press screener ended up being the same file that they pushed to NBC after. It was only a few hour difference. But just interesting. I wish they hadn't done that, because they held on to the screener because it was corrupt. The file was corrupt, was the word. But we much would have rather got out ahead of all this if we, you know, had that like zoomed in version.
What did Ziggy do behind the scenes?
It was Ziggy, right? It was Ziggy. That's what it was. Speaking of nurses saving the day, we had a nurse that was not saving the day. He was acting on the Mad Doctor's behalf, and that was, his name was Burly Nurse. That was the character's name, and that was played by Armando McClain. So I got a chance earlier today to talk to him. So why don't we go to that now?
She'll be under for about a half an hour. The doctor will be up shortly.
Hello and welcome back to the Quantum Leap Podcast. I'm Albie, and today with us we have from Ben Interrupted. He played the Burly Nurse. We have Armando McClain. How you doing, Armando?
I'm good. How are you, Albie?
Good. Ever since I found out we were talking to you, I've been saying Armando. I just like that name. That's a pretty cool name.
Yeah, you should add my middle name in there too, Armando Leon McClain.
Armando Leon McClain. Okay, yeah. From now on, that's what I'll call you. That sounds great. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to talk to you, learn a little bit more about the production of Ben Interrupted. And I want to do that. But before I do that, I want to talk to you about your career, how you got into acting, your background, all that stuff. I looked you up and I saw some of the stuff you did, and I'm excited to talk about that as well. But we'll get there probably chronologically. But what gave you the acting bug? I know you did a lot of theater, but what did you start out doing in acting?
Yeah, it was totally by accident in high school, actually. I signed up for a journalism class my freshman year in high school. And then on a dare, somebody said, you should put down drama as an alternate because, you need alternates in case you don't get the class that you want. Right. And then I put it down. It's like, yeah, whatever. And then I didn't get into the journalism class and I got stuck in the theater. And I tried to transfer out of that class like literally 3 different times. First time I lost my pass. Second time I knew the pass was in my bag, but it just like disintegrated. And then the third time, because the teacher has to sign the pass, and he's like, "Are you sure you want to get out of this class? Because I'm not signing another one of these passes." And I'm just like, "Yeah, it's just not my thing." Shy, awkward kid, still kind of am. And but by then we'd done like a couple like icebreaker games and stuff like that or whatever, and so he got to know me a little bit. And he's just like, and he's one of those like really mean teachers, But he's just like, "Well, you should come back. You've done some good work, and we would love to have you." Because yeah, what are you, like a junior? Because I was really tall. And I was like, no. He was like, sophomore? No. And he's like, and then he laughed and he's like, don't tell me you're a freshman. I'm just like, yeah, I'm a freshman. He's like, well, you got plenty of time. You've done some really good work and really, we would love to have you. I'm just like, okay, yeah, thanks. And then I walked to the office to turn in my pass. I held on to it this time so I didn't lose it. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking like, this really mean teacher was nice to me, And I go all the way to the office and I'm just like, I've done all the things. I'm still alive. What the heck? It's just a semester. And then I tore up the pass and then just it became one of my favorite classes. Wow. Yeah. So since high school.
What were some of the first productions you did in high school?
One of the first productions that we did that I was a part of, there's this theater group in Chicago called the Neo-Futurists. And their big thing was that they did plays, 30 plays in 60 minutes. So like 2-minute plays. So wow. We did a bunch of those. Yeah. And it's like, kind of avant-garde, like, quick stuff, but also like funny or really like tragic, like, but they just went for it. And so we did a collection of those. And then our main stage show that we ended up doing was Crimes of the Heart by Beth Henley. Where I got to play the quirky lawyer or whatever and love interest and stuff. So that was a lot of fun. And it was really fun because that show in particular used flashbacks and we had twins. So we got to do like the ultimate special effect. Well, while one twin is narrating what's happening, the other twin was acting it out with like on the other side of the stage. So it's like our big, cool theatrical trick that we got to do. Very cool.
Yeah. When did it switch from something that seemed like it would be fun to this is what I want to do for a career?
After high school, I was doing junior college and stuff like that. And, I was still in theater. And then I just started I was there for a while and then I started getting work in the Bay Area. That's where I was based, San Francisco, Oakland, Bay Area. And then I started getting work in the professional theaters and stuff like that. And I was like in these rooms with like professional actors who have their like equity card and all that other kind of stuff. And I was like the only one that wasn't, but I was still in the room. You know what I mean? So I was just like, oh, wow, like this is pretty cool. And like they were paying me to do it and stuff. And, but I was seeing those actors who were like, they were building stuff because they had the tools to like build their performance. So stuff that I would be reaching for, like I want to hit that moment or whatever. Like they're consistently doing it because they know how to, like, they have a process and they have steps. And I'm just like, well, I want that training. And so after that, I applied to 2 schools, Juilliard and CalArts. Got called back for both.
Wow.
There was one that I was really interested in because they were just like, or really interested in what you have to say as an artist. And I've never really like considered myself an artist, like it was just like, I'm an actor. I get up there, say lines, make funny things or whatever. And, but that was CalArts. And that was the school that I was just like, okay, well, I really want to get into the school. And ultimately the choice was made for me because like Juilliard said no, CalArts said yes. And I'm just like, good, I don't have to decide. And yeah, it was great, man. It was like, is it sort of avant-garde school in terms of like theater and stuff like that. They're based in Valencia, California, but a lot of cool stuff. And it was the first time that I was like immersed in art of all forms, like all around me. Like they had a dance school, they had animation, a lot of like the Pixar kids come out of there and stuff. And yeah, it was really cool. And like, I knew by going to that school that like, okay, I'm going into debt. I'm committing to this, I'm committing to like making this a career. And yeah, they gave us, that it wasn't just, we didn't just have to do acting like on stage. There's film, there's voiceover, there's motion capture, there's all these other things that you could do that aren't just like this one thing. And then also like teaching and stuff. And I feel I have a, soft spot in my heart just because that's the way I found acting. That's the way I found theater. And so I do a lot of teaching artist stuff as well. So yeah.
Yeah, acting, teaching, that's pretty awesome. And the voice work, of course, you do that. That's pretty cool. I listened to your voice work demo, and I couldn't believe all those characters were you. So you have a very good range when it comes to character work or voiceovers. Yeah,
and I didn't really like find all those things until like I was at CalArts. Like my low, like soft and warm, the quiet storm voice that didn't come until I was at CalArts and like was able to like access all that stuff.
So what kind of classes did you take there? Like what do you focus on?
It was mostly theater, but so like a typical day at CalArts, you would be like voice and text work, which, and then movement stuff, and then your studio time where you work on like, scenes or plays or stuff like that. And then the next day it's like other types of movement stuff, and then like whether it would be a voiceover class or something like that, but you would be in classes all day practicing stuff. So and then after all that's done, then you have the main stage shows, which are just like 7 to 11, rehearsing for those and stuff like that. And then if you were really crazy and wanted to do something on your own, we would have like the after hours, like coffee house, like rogue sort of like performances and stuff like that. So yeah, it was constant.
I picture something like the TV show Victorious. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but where they're like in art school and they do all kinds of different acting stuff. Seems like a lot of fun. Good way to learn your craft.
Well, you're basically like taking yourself apart and putting yourself back together again. And yeah, and I was very lucky there because like after my first year, I was invited into the MFA program because I just went in as a BFA, even though I had some college before. So I was kind of like doing both at the same time. So I ended up like getting 2 degrees for the price of one, basically. So like, awesome. So I was like really working all the time.
I noticed you did some Shakespeare. That's not so easy, is it?
No. And actually like I was very afraid of Shakespeare for a long time because like, I'm a person of color. I'm black and I'm Mexican. I like to say I'm Blaxican. I'm both at the same time. And, typically I didn't really see a lot of myself in Shakespeare and stuff. But while I was at Chabot Community College, we came up to the Oregon Shakespeare Festival on like a school trip or whatever. And it was at that time I was just like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm pretty good in high school. Oh yeah, I'm pretty good in college or whatever. Getting some roles in the Bay Area. That's cool. But then I would come to that place. I'm just like, oh, right. This is like real deal, like acting. And it was the first time that I actually seen like Shakespeare done well. And when you see Shakespeare done well, you don't even have to like read it before or anything like that. You can tell because the actors know what they're saying, you know what they're saying. And they're so clear in their text and their intention and just everything that you just understand the story. And the first show that I saw there was like Othello, and a person like me owning the room with his voice and everything like that. Derek Lee Whedon was the actor playing Othello. And I'm just like, what? Like, that's what I want. I want to be able to do that. And I was fortunate enough to work at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival after graduating Cal Arts for 5 seasons. And I'm actually back here right now.
Does like the Shakespearean language, I guess it's a language because it's English, but
yeah,
it's way different, because I'm intimidated watching Shakespeare stuff. I enjoy it, and I don't understand what's happening while I'm watching it, but like I understand what I watched after I watched it, if that makes sense, like you were saying.
Yeah, it sort of like gets in your lizard brain and like processes it.
Yeah, it's like buffering a little bit as I go. Does that make it more difficult to learn the lines for that kind of stuff, or do they teach you like tricks or anything?
A lot of people because there's a rhythm to Shakespeare, the iambic pentameter. You can sort of ride that sometimes, and it's like, oh, I've said it. Oh, it didn't sound right because I was off rhythm. There's things like that, and it is poetry. I mean, like, as long as you give yourself over into the imagery and stuff like that, it does make it a little bit easier. But for me personally, I'm dyslexic, so learning that stuff, I really need to just take my time and go through it. And I also record myself saying the lines in a very bass, non sort of emotional, just the lines, just so I can get it in my head while I'm at the gym or washing dishes and stuff like that. So I'm doing something physical while also listening to it. That helps me a lot.
Cool. So after you got out of school, then what happened?
After I got out of school, I was, in LA for a little bit. I got into a car accident. I'm okay. Everybody's okay. But literally after the car accident, I got a phone call, which I didn't answer, but it was a job offer for the Bay Area and to go back home, basically. And then my car was totaled. So I'm just like, oh, well, this is a sign, I should probably go home. And so I did that. And then I was in the Bay Area for a little bit. And then I got called up to the Oregon Shakespeare Festival and had a wonderful time there. It's just a magical place with artistry that's really top notch, not just on stage, but also behind the scenes, the costumes, the sets, all the stuff with the rigging and everything like that, because they're a repertory theater, so they're doing multiple shows all at the same time. So you have crews that are you're seeing Rent in the morning, and then crews come over and change over the entire set, and then you're seeing Romeo and Juliet at night. The people that do all that stuff, top notch, amazing. But then after that, moved down to LA in 2019. Was still doing a show in New York, the Julius Caesar that we did here, went to New York. So I went with that and then did another show in the Bay Area, and then finally landed in LA, ready to go at the beginning of 2020. And then everything just kind of stopped.
Yeah. Was that an advantage or disadvantage? Because you had more time before you started things.
Yeah, it's, it was a way to sort of gather ourselves and find our footing in the area and stuff like that, reconnect with friends and stuff, and even at a distance or whatever, but just get plugged back into the whole Southern California LA scene and stuff. So in that way it was it was good and not the pressure of just just because I'm not working doesn't mean the world stopped, because, well, everybody's not working. So I'm not taking it personally, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I was still finding ways to do Zoom performances or something like that or whatever. And still auditioning every once in a while, via camera and stuff like that. But it was a way to sort of take the pressure off of you have to do something now. But yeah, and it got me used to camera work and stuff, certain things like that.
So was moving to television, film, was that a conscious decision and something that was always part of your plan, or how did that happen?
I think it's always been part of my plan. I just, having consistent work is like a sort of godsend for actors. So, and the contract at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival was like, 10 months. So 10 months of work, that's like, it's pretty good. So walking away from that had to be a choice. And yeah, I love movies. I love watching television. I love the stories that they're able to tell, just because they're like, you don't have to imagine that we have a horse on stage. There's an actual horse there. We don't have to imagine that we're on a cliff. We're actually on location, that sort of stuff. And just the quality of television has just gone up tremendously over the past, few years and stuff like that, like rivaling some movies and stuff. And just like,
absolutely.
And the fact that like now stories are, more reflective of people like me and stuff. And like, I have things to say. I have stories I want to tell, and just wanting to be a part of that and stuff. So I've always wanted to lean towards television and film. And then having the opportunity to be on Quantum Leap, even in my small capacity, just like seeing the way that like the sausage gets made, and just how many people are like, on set, taking care of this aspect, taking care of that aspect, and how everybody's like doing their work to make this one thing happen, which I think is really cool. Like how many times, other than like sports or something like that, is like a group working towards like creating, in this case, art, and storytelling. So I think it's always been on my bucket list, and now I'm finally getting to like dip my toes in it a little bit more.
Yeah, this is your first television appearance, correct? Quantum Leap.
Yeah, my first network TV and stuff.
That's pretty huge, I think. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, for me.
Can you take me through that process, maybe auditioning and how you got the role?
Yeah. It came through my agent, and she's like, "Hey, we have this thing, might work out or whatever, blah blah blah." Like, they are asking for tape and stuff, and basically it was a moment where I'm giving, I forget her character name. I think it's Judith. Like, like I'm injecting stuff on her and stuff like that, and saying my one line. It's like, she'll be under for about a half an hour. The doctor will be up shortly. That whole thing. And so I use my lucky charm, which is, my wife being like, like reading with me on script and stuff like that. So she was the arm, like off camera, that I was holding on to. And then like, like that and whatever. And then like, had some emotion reaction about that, but also just kind of like, but he's Burly Nurse. So, some shoulder action, just like, and then just like into the camera, and then just walk off. And then you send it off and you never know or whatever. And then like, I heard from my agent, just like, "Hey, you're pinned, just so you know." Like, so cool. You're in consideration. Just like, that's fantastic. And then a couple of days later, she's like, "They want to use you." And I'm just like,
wow,
fantastic. And then before I knew it, I was like going in for fitting, and then like, meeting with hair and makeup and stuff like that. And then I was on set.
Was the character always Burly Nurse, or was that because of your height and stature?
It was always in the script. When I got it, it was always Burly Nurse.
Okay.
And I know, like in the credits, it might have just said Nurse, but we all know he's Burly Nurse.
Did you come up with any kind of backstory for your part, like a name or a little bit of a backstory, how working in the mental institution back then?
Well, I sort of latched onto like Lawrence's backstory in terms of like his relationship with the doctor and stuff, and how like they were in the war together and everything like that or whatever, and like he saved him and stuff. So I was like, if he's doing something this like perverse, he probably has people around him that he trusts and stuff. So I was probably part of that, like that crew, that troop or whatever. And plus like a lot of the nurses that they had were like big guys, So I sort of locked into that in terms of like feeding with the story and stuff.
So I'm trying to picture like your first television role, and it's a network TV show. Like the night before you're due on set, are you going like, are you having like anxiety? Are you having imposter syndrome? Are you going, oh my goodness? Can you take me through that?
Yeah, all those things. And just like some, but what's cool is, you get the day before they give you the breakdown of what you're going to be doing for the following day. So I knew what to expect. The only thing that I was nervous about was like, the fact that like it said stunt or whatever. And that was the part where I get hit in the back of the head and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, okay, well, are we going to talk about that? Or are we just going to do it? Like, what's the situation? And also like, I didn't want to be late. So I showed up like really early. I showed up like maybe an hour, 15 minutes early, just because like good impression, don't get fired. That's like, you have the job, just don't get fired. So yeah, and the PA guy was great. And the hair and makeup guy was like very encouraging because I had met him a couple days before for fittings and stuff like that. And he was just like, he was giving me a little bit of the lowdown. It's just like, everybody's really cool. It's chill, just if you need something, ask for it. And if you're unclear about something, just ask, speak up. His name was Q. He's very, very great and welcoming. And then, yeah, I get in my costume, I'm waiting there, for my turn because, it's staggered and everything like that, and have my own trailer. So I'm just like, oh, this is cool.
Wow. Yeah, I saw that with Burly Nurse on the door.
Yeah. And it's like, it's a long trailer with like your own like little spot or whatever, but it's just nice. It's just like, oh, okay, I have my own space to like get ready. And then they call you on set and they like rehearse what you're going to do and stuff like that. And then but the first thing that we were doing was the hit and the struggle and all that other kind of stuff. And what was funny was I'm not sure they accounted for how slippery the floor was in that scene. So there was a lot more struggling that wasn't on, like, that didn't end up like in the episode, but it was both Ray and I just like kind of slipping around, which was worse for him just because he was in the straitjacket, so he can't like brace himself or anything like that. So I was like trying to struggle with him, but also like making sure that he was okay and stuff or whatever. But this is like the first moment, and like, he's number one on the call sheet. And I don't want to mess this up. I don't want to, hurt you or anything like that. So I was very careful, and he was very like giving and stuff like that. He's like you can grab me more. You can like really get in there. So, oh, okay. So, we got to like a moment where we were just like both happy with what we were doing and stuff like that. But, and then like they do the hit thing, and then I like, maybe it's the theater training or whatever, but like I do the hit and then I fall and they're just like, cause they had a stunt double there for me.
Oh, did they? Wow. Okay, cool.
But they were ready just in case, like, because they didn't know me, they didn't know my work, so they wanted to be prepared. But like, I do the first thing, and then like this coordinator's like, he's got it, he's fine. But we kept doing it like 7-8 times or whatever for this angle, and then also for the other angle, and then towards the end, like I think it was like the 8th or 9th hit where I fall. I actually landed on the bed a little hard, and I broke the bed.
Well, you are burly, so.
Yeah, I'm burly, which kind of scared me. I was like, oh shit, I didn't mean to break anything. But it was just like, okay. But it was really great, and everybody's very supportive, like, which just, whenever you're new anywhere, as long as people are welcoming with smiles and interested in like knowing who you are, at least, it was great. Yeah. Had
you watched the show to prepare? Few episodes
I watched at least 5 episodes. I just binged them straight through, and I was just like, oh wow, I really like the show. And especially like the Western episode with the town, with all the different like people in the town, and then it was just like, wow, this is really cool, and this is really like inclusive and stuff, and that's something that I want to be a part of. Yeah, and then like Ray being like number one on the call sheet, like the lead of the show is also, and he's like the nicest guy, really down to earth, really chill. Yeah.
I saw a photo of you and him like on the set together, just taking a picture. Yeah. That was nice.
Yeah, he was in a show that originated the role, and that show ended up going to Oregon Shakespeare Festival where I was. So we knew a lot of the similar people and stuff like that. And I told them that I was on set with him, and he's like, oh, let's take a picture, send it to them and whatever, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, really nice, really chill. And yeah, from the theater as well, which is great.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Was there anything that surprised you going from live theater to, television with cameras and marks and different lightings and different setups. And what surprised you the most about that?
Well, I wouldn't say there's a lot of surprising things, but well, I guess so, because like you always hear about it between like, the theater where things are, lots of gestures and everything like that, which, it varies on how big the theater is. You'd be in a real intimate theater and like you are doing cinematic acting, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But also with the camera, like on set, there's all these people around, and just finding your room to navigate in that, it's like you can know it like in your mind, like you're told it, but like to actually like experience it and just like feel how, like, even looking at the doctor when like he's pacing back and forth, how going like this is one thing, but going like this is another thing, like the subtle adjustments between like head movements and eyes, because it's a lot of what I observed was a lot of it had to do with like your eyes and your focus and stuff, and being very clear on that. And, being able to work with like, Patrick Fischler, who's like, he's a character actor who's done like every show. I think he was actually filming. he was filming on another show while he was also filming with us, like on the day in between. Like he had to go somewhere else to do something else, but he was like the nicest guy. I was basically his right hand, like heavy guy, but like he was very nice to me. That's great. How many days did you do on the shoot? Was it 1 or 2 or? I was on set for 3 days. Oh, wow. Okay. Scheduled for 4, but just on set for 3 days. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What was your second day like? It was basically just following Patrick Fischler around as the doctor, and being like, the intimidating force behind him and everything like that or whatever. So yeah. But it was great just because I got to see how somebody who has so much experience navigates, like coming in for one, these couple of days, making a strong impression, very clear about his intentions and everything like that. And just observing how he and the rest of the cast like navigated and like, solved problems on the spot for like, issues that were coming up, like something wasn't working right or sounding right, but they were like, but they weren't complaining about it. They were just like, well, what if we did this? Like always come with a solution sort of thing. And because they know the field and like, what the camera is and everything like that, they came up with solutions that fit for the camera. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Did you get any direction from the director? Yeah. Jude was very nice in terms of like, like giving me intentions of like, okay, when you come in there to like, give him his shot or whatever, he's just like, you really need to get this done. He's awake, blah, blah, blah. You need to get him back to sleep, back under control. You need to get him under control. So that whole intention of doing that and everything like that. And then just always bringing energy to whenever you enter or whatever, blah, blah, blah. It's not, you're not just like walking on stage like we're a boy band in the back, playing the doctor and like that. It's like, no, we're here to like get stuff done. And she wanted to feel that. So like, that's what we did, that sort of stuff. But she was great. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. I always hear great things about everybody on that crew and everybody involved. So it's nice to hear that. Yeah. I want to come back to Quantum Leap, but also I want to talk a little bit about your voice work. You have you do a podcast, and I listened to the first episode. It's like a dramatic podcast, like a noir mystery, and it has to do with DOS and computers and bulletin boards, and I'm definitely hooked. So I definitely will listen to the rest of them. But tell me a little bit about that, because I really enjoyed that. Like, I just wanted to compliment you on your work on that, because it's very like, it sucks you in, and it's very, you feel like you're right there. It's like a good audiobook almost. Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was a random submission on Actors Access. This guy, Joshua Wise, he has this whole podcast universe of all these like creepy things or whatever called Weeping Cedars, and this is like an offshoot of that sort of thing. And I just sort of submitted for it. Initially, I didn't get it. Somebody else got it, but but he came back to me because he's like, well, that guy, his equipment isn't great or whatever, so we want to see if you would be interested, or, we could see what your equipment's like. I was just like, yeah, sure, of course. And thankfully, like, I have friends in the community that like do voiceover work that have like, a solid like booth sort of thing. And so I was able to like go to my friend AJ Hamilton's his setup, and he said it sounded great. And then and then his writing is just so engaging. Like just reading it, like I want to know what's happening next. It's totally his thing, but like I'm like really engaged and like, well, what's season 2 going to be like? What's season 3? We do have a season 2. It will be coming out, but the whole story is like I think going to be like a 3-part thing, hopefully. But yeah, the Samite podcast is one. I'm proud of that stuff. I'm proud of it. And I'm really glad that people are like, when they listen to it and they get hooked, it's just like, great. That has 90% his writing, 10% my dulcet tones. So.
Yeah, I was about halfway through the first episode when I hit subscribe. I was like, yeah, this is good. This is good. Yeah.
Awesome.
You're very good in that character. You also have more voice work coming up. You got your character in an animated series about time travel, which interests me. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, you're talking about Zack in Time. Zack in Time is it was a sort of like pilot Patreon project. I don't know when it's coming out, but it was a lot of fun to do. I just haven't heard anything about it for a while, but yeah.
Seems like an interesting concept. So what do you prefer? Do you like voice work more? Or do you like acting on camera, live theater? Or do you just like want to do it all?
I kind of want to do it all. And, but I'm really getting into the voiceover stuff, like more and more, like just how intimate you can be with the microphone, and like, just all the crazy stuff you do with your body to make those voices happen. And also you don't have to like worry about like hair and makeup and all that other kind of stuff or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But like you talk about like, I'm really into like anime and stuff like that and video games. So if I could get into any of those, that would be like a dream come true. I have a friend who is on Jujutsu Kaisen, which is a new like anime that just came out like, I think last year, and she's doing great. And, but to be a part of like a show like that, where like, buildings are collapsing, you're a wizard, like all these other kind of stuff, like, all that stuff could, just be a part of that. Cause I like anime growing up was like one of my like escapes, and it still kind of is. So
it's good stuff.
But also television and film, like, yeah.
Do you have any upcoming projects we should be on the lookout for?
Not current. I mean, right now I'm back at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. I'm doing 12th night for them. I will be there at Orsino. Wow. Yeah. So it'll be on the outdoor stage, and it's going up June 1st through October 15th. So if anybody makes it to the Oregon Shakespeare Festival and wants to see brilliant Shakespeare, mostly done by other people, and I will be there too.
So anybody lucky enough to be around there. Yeah.
Yeah. Please come check us out.
So, take me back to Quantum Leap, your final day in Quantum Leap. Is that when you shot the scene with the arm?
That's when I shot the scene with the arm. And it's also a scene, I'm not sure if it was in the episode, but like, Ralph, the character who's like throws stuff or whatever, we actually had him on the table, and you get to see like the doctor like pulling out the bloody lobotomy needle and stuff. That wasn't in the episode. That didn't make it.
I don't remember seeing it. No. The episode might have ran long. That's been happening. They had to cut stuff for time.
But what was interesting about that was like I was there with him because he gives me orders to go, sedate the other guy or whatever. And then but in order to get to like the tension of Peter pulling the needle out, I was like literally like holding the needle by his nose off camera so he could have the tension of like it coming out. So like, those little like camera tricks or whatever that like you hear about, but you actually get to be a part of and stuff. So that was cool. And then the last day, I got my mic, suited up and everything like that, and had the scene, and, did my lines, walked off and everything like that. And it was like, I did it a couple times because I think I was a little nervous because it was like this first time of speaking. And then, yeah, it was quick. It was easy. And then I thought I was done for the day. So I was just hanging out in, the little green room area. And then they called me back to set for some reason. And I'm just like, oh, it's like, because that's my worst nightmare. It's like, there's something that I didn't read. It's like another scene and there's like more words that you don't know are there. And then I go back on set and they're changing stuff over. And then like, the first AD is just like, and that's a wrap on Armando for this episode. And then everybody clapped and stuff like that. And I'm just like, I thought I was going to the principal's office. And they were just like, they gave a round of applause. And I don't know if they knew it was like my first like thing or whatever, but like they were very nice about it and stuff. And then after that, I think they do this for every episode, but then after that we did a cast photo for everybody that was there and stuff, which was very cool. I didn't get a copy of that, but it's in the makeup trailer, I'm sure. And then that was it. Yeah. Very
cool. I have a couple silly questions. Did you work with the prop master, like on the fake needles? Were they fake needles, retractable, or did you just have to like mime it? How did that work?
They were retractable needles, which had a very strong spring, which like, I don't know if they fixed it in the episode, but we were having trouble just because like, Ray's struggling, right? And if the needle moves at all, it just like shoots out. So it doesn't look consistent. It's like you're dragging that all over his arm or whatever. And then it's just like, well, what if I put my thumb there to like hold it in place? So even if it does shoot out, it just shoots out in my thumb, but the camera can't see that. So I think we ended up doing that for both that time and then the other time as well. As a way to like just like solve the problem, right? Mm-hmm. So and then we also did it with like with one that had no needle in it, which they may or may not have used. But he was very helpful in terms of like, so how can we make this work and everything like that or whatever. And I suggested that. He's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, we can try that. So yeah.
Very cool, very cool. Where did you film? Was it on a set or on the location?
It was on a set in. I want to say Santa Clarita or something like that. I don't know. But
so they built that hospital, or was it like
the
an
hospital
old
room?
hospital?
Yeah. Well, the parts that I was in, like the lab area where they were, where she was on the table, his cell and everything like that. That's all like sets where they can like, pull out the walls and everything like that or whatever. So, and there's like, it's just like a bunch of different sets all around that studio. And yeah, it was very cool just to walk around just like, oh, this is an office. Oh, this is his office. Oh, yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Usually we talk to people before the episode airs, but luckily we're getting to talk to you after the episode airs. So what was your experience like watching yourself on network television?
It was pretty surreal. Like I said, like, I didn't do much. I had a line. I did what I was supposed to do and everything like that. But it was like, because I'm up here and my wife's down in LA. And so like we sort of had a Zoom watch party, which was kind of cool. Which was funny because in LA, they were like 30 seconds ahead of me. So they saw me come on camera before I did. So they're all like, yay. And I'm just like, what happened? And then I was like, oh, it's me. And yeah, it was just like, okay. I could probably go to the gym a little bit more, but yeah. But they wanted Burly, so I gave them Burly.
Yep. They picked you for a reason, so there you go. Awesome.
But it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Awesome. So what's your biggest takeaway from Quantum Leap? And I think you're kind of spoiled from being on such a great set for your first TV job. But what will you take with you from this first TV acting job?
It's what they always tell you, like be nice to everyone. and try not to be the problem and just be aware of what's going on. Like if you see somebody coming through with something, get out of their way, that sort of thing. But know what you are doing, really be on top of what you are doing so that when it's your time to do it, you don't have to figure it out. If they're setting up the scene or whatever, and you know that you're going to be standing over there, but you can't stand there right now because like they have other stuff going on, you can look and like see how you're going to navigate that, like pay attention, not just to like yourself, but like the environment, because like if the guy with the camera has to come around this way. You have to stand in such a way that you're not in his way, you know, and that sort of thing. Like, we're all working together. So like, try not to be the problem, be a team player, you know, take in everything, be nice to everyone. And yeah, know your role.
Well, I enjoyed you on the episode.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for being on the Quantum Leap podcast, Armando.
Thanks for asking. Thanks for having me.
Wow. And we're back. Armando, I really had a nice time getting to know Armando. This was his first television role, which is amazing that we got to talk with him about his first television role. He has a huge background in theater, and he's done some great voice work. The podcast that he does, I really enjoyed, so I subscribed to that. It's like a murder mystery noir. It's a mystery noir thing about a old bulletin board server that the protagonist found on an old computer he bought. It's really cool. So his voice talent is amazing. This guy can do all different voices, but just a great guy, and we had a great time. Even off screen, we had a conversation. If you visit his Instagram, he has this little plush monkey face, and it's in a lot of his photos. And I wish I had gotten this during the interview, but we were talking after the interview because we got along so well. Apparently,
don't body shame our guests, Albie.
What did I do?
You're saying he's got this plush monkey face? How rude!
Oh no, not him. It's one he carries around. No, he's a very handsome guy. So he puts him in. These
he looks almost as good in a nurse's uniform as Madison Ivy does. So
there you go. Hello, nurse. That's what I said to him. So this monkey fell off. His wife, I believe, had a pair of socks with like plush monkeys on the back of the socks, and they each took them off, and one has a bow and one doesn't. So he carries the one with the bow, when they're not together, and she carries the one that doesn't have a bow. So it's like they're kind of like totem for each other. So that's why he puts it in all his pictures. So when they're not together, they're still thinking of each other. And I just thought that was amazing.
Cute.
Just a great guy. So worth a follow. And I'm really liked the job that he did. And it was interesting about just him taking me through the experience of being a first-time on TV actor.
And speaking of plush monkey faces and other fun little totems, this would normally be where we do our leap and look. But I don't know if anyone has anything.
Well, you can look behind Juan. He's got a really cool basement. I slept many a nights in that basement.
If I had the time, TUTLB's been slow because there's a flood down here. I have Quantum Leap comic books somewhere over to my right in this cabinet. I wasn't able to pull them out in time.
Juan, I really apologize. I think before I left the last time, I didn't turn the faucet all the way off, so it might have been just a slow drip these past few years.
Now we know who the mole is.
It was a nightmare.
It's Albie, the wet bandit.
The wet bandit.
That's a deep cut.
Juan, other things in this episode that we might not have talked about yet.
So I don't know that we haven't talked about it as much. I'm interested to see if we get to see Ian's leap. Going back to what you said a little bit earlier about Martinez being able to possibly leap back, I'm interested to see if that's what Ian has done as well, or if Ian is now out there in the ether in whatever future that he's gone into. But we only have 2 episodes left, so I don't know if that's a possibility, but I'm interested to see what develops with that as well.
Yeah, I am too. I would be, I shouldn't make guesses because I'm nearly always right. But what I could see happening is the end of episode 18 is where we might see all hell break loose and where we see Ian deciding that they need to leap. So it could even be that's how the cliffhanger for the end of season 1 and season 2, at least to start with, might be the Ian Chronicles. I would really like to see that. I'm sure that the writers are listening to us, considering how many of my ideas have ended up on the screen now. So,
so Judgment Day is coming. The final episode.
You religious
season
nuther.
1. And we don't know much about it. We do have that one photo from one of the actors that was kind of dressed like a Terminator, which was weird. So I don't know how close they're going to stick to Terminator 2 if they are. But what are some things you're looking forward to
files
in that finale?
Well, we did get the synopsis for.
Oh, did we? Okay,
Day.
I did not read it yet.
Yeah.
Share it for me.
So this is for Judgment Day, which is episode 18, 2 episodes away. Ben's next leap takes him closer to home than he ever expected. The team faces the ultimate showdown with Leaper X as they battle for the future of the Quantum Leap project with their lives. So that's
what?
Closer than ever expected. Does he leap back into himself?
Does he leap back to present day?
Ooh.
Who knows? And I think I read Matt put up a synopsis for episode, maybe not.
When I first saw the leap in, or the next week on Quantum Leap, of just Ben being a flight attendant, I was like, so close to the finale, and they're just doing like a throwaway flight attendant, who knows what it's going to be, murder at 3,000 feet.
Well, isn't he trying to stop a terrorist attack or something?
Is that what it is?
I think
What
I
does
read
the synopsis say?
I'm looking for it. Hang on.
Okay.
While he looks, my fear for this episode is that even though it may be a good episode, if that's what it ends up being, is about terrorism on a plane or whatever, my fear is that it doesn't. You're 2 episodes away from the finale. You don't put a filler episode in. Like, you've got to.
Yes.
You can't take people up and then bring people down and then expect to take them back up for the finale. You've got to,
especially not in a
further
plane
the
episode.
Storyline somehow. Yeah.
The vomit comment episode.
That's my big fear for this next episode.
Yeah. So the synopsis for The Friendly Skies is: when Ben leaps aboard a 1970s passenger jet as a flight attendant, he must outwit its hijackers before it mysteriously crashes into the Atlantic. And worse, he has to do it all without Ziggy's help.
Oh, that's it, yeah. Okay, yeah, it sounds like a filler episode. It really does. And so close to the finale, it's like a waste. That happened with me.
So I don't think it could be a filler episode, given what we know.
The last season of Next Gen, when they had like a few episodes to go and they just put in a couple filler episodes, I was really mad at the series because I'm like, you only have a few episodes to go. Do something important, big, crazy. This is your chance. But they have Brent Spiner in a mask talking funny. It's weird. But we know we have a season 2, so we don't really have to worry about that. Right. When I first heard what the episode was going to be about from some of my friends at production, it seemed to me like they were going to do the DB Cooper story that was alluded to in the original script, where they had Ben leap into DB Cooper, and they had like a couple alternates, but that was one of them. So I was very excited about it.
Sorry, who's
Cooper
DB
story.
Cooper?
Well, we don't know. That's the thing.
Oh
no, he was a guy back in the, what was it, 60s, Juan, that hijacked a plane, got all this money, and then parachuted out of the plane, and they never found out.
They never found him.
Yeah, they never found out. So it's a mystery, and every once in a while they'll do a documentary to show exactly who did it and why they think it's him. But then the next year there's a different documentary why somebody else did it, and they're sure it's this guy now, that kind of thing. So
it's like the escapees from Alcatraz.
Yeah. So that was a good one. But I was wondering if maybe going into this, because a lot of times they have to make changes for one reason or another. Maybe just the narrative didn't work. But I wonder if they went towards this episode like on the whiteboard, thinking it was going to be the DB Cooper episode, and then it just got changed.
Well, the way I would have written it is, especially because Deborah's been wanting lots of kisses with history, I would have had Ben leap into the 4th plane on 9/11 and have it be an entirely complete Kiss with History that it's Ben's intervention which stops that one from going into the White House?
For me, I think it's too soon for that. I don't know.
Well, it's been 20 years.
Yeah,
but yes, it does still feel too soon.
It does feel too soon. Yeah, like just even the mention of it gets my emotions going. So I think it might be too heavy.
Although I do
right
believe
now.
that one of the possible reboot movies that they were throwing around was going to revolve around 9/11. So I'd say that they might have a plan somewhere along the way to incorporate it somewhere. But as long as they do it tastefully and respectfully, I'd be interested to see what they can come up with.
I would love to see a Kiss with History on this episode on the plane, where just Billy Idol is one of the passengers, like in The Wedding Singer, just in the 70s instead of the 80s. So that'd be cool. They did.
Well, if we're
John
getting to
earlier.
Billy Idol, I think we might be nearing the end of our discussion. So, Juan, do you have a rating for us out of 5 random items from the episode?
Listen, I'll give it a 3.5 hand links. I'm okay with that. It progressed the story at the end, especially. It gave me more satisfaction than I thought it would. I still, it's hard for me to get used to having 17 people in a Quantum Leap episode. I hope eventually we get to just the 2 and then maybe one other person. But 3.5, it was a solid episode. It did what it needed to do for the storyline.
Okay. Well, I'm going to give it 5 cigarette lighters out of 5. There was actually nothing that I could complain about in this episode. Maybe the only thing I can complain about is there's nothing to complain about, and I really like complaining.
I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 doses of sodium pentothal. This was not my favorite episode. I don't think it had anything to do with the writing, the directing, the acting. I think it just, for some reason, I was unable to connect with it like I have with other episodes. I did enjoy a lot of aspects of it. The thing that kind of bumped me was, again, having Ben die or almost die and Addison doing that scream again, because like the first time, for some reason, like in Leap Die Repeat, it really got me and I felt it and immediately emotional. But this time it was one of those things where I felt no jeopardy. I didn't think Raymond was not going to be in season 2 and this was going to be his last episode. So like for some reason I just didn't connect emotionally with that, but that might be more of a my thing and where I'm at in life than the episode. But I did like the fact that they talked about misdiagnosing mental illness and things that happened back then and things that are still happening now, where lobotomies were very commonplace. I think my mind went to JFK's sister. I believe she had hysteria and they gave her a lobotomy and it just messed her up for the rest of her life. And if you watch any documentaries on that, it was just because she wanted basically she just wanted control over her life and to be a person, and they at that time that was shunned, and so they damaged her brain. So I think that just because current science believes something doesn't mean they're right, because you can know something for a fact and still be wrong. So I think that I don't know if this was intended by the writer, but what I got out of it, because I always like to get something out of an episode of Quantum Leap, what I got out of it was just because you think someone might not be the norm or have some kind of mental differences than they're supposed to have, or what you think they're supposed to have, or society imposes on you, doesn't mean you just willy-nilly give treatment to someone to make them more normal, let's say, in quotation marks. Because, even though now it's done with different medicines and not like ice picks and hammers, it still can damage and change somebody's brain permanently forever, without really knowing long-term effects of medication that is given to people that might not even need it. There's been great strides in mental health, and there's always going to be improvements, but I think when you mess with somebody's brain for something that's not imminently necessary and it's not their choice, I don't think that is a good thing necessarily. So that's what I got out of this, which is don't lobotomize your kids. That's what I got. So that would be
And by the way, for everyone listening, vaccines work.
Yes, absolutely. I'm
pro-vaccine. That very much sounded like anti-vaccine rhetoric.
I'm pro-vaccine. I'm anti-changing people's brains if they're a little bit.
I think. So what's your I think that goes to the bigger. I think it goes to the bigger problem is we're all different. We're all weird. We're all crazy. We're all Democrat, Republican, whatever they have in Australia. I have no idea. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't be treating each other like human beings. You know what I mean? We're better than that at this point in 2023. Who cares? It's such a stupid thing. Albie, you're crazy and different than me, and that's okay. I still love you, man. I still consider you my friend. Whether we have different opinions or not. Hopefully everybody out there that's listening, if you think you have something going on, hopefully you're reaching out to the people who can help you, whether that's a friend or family or somebody that's in the professional field. And it's okay. Just know that it's okay. Strength comes from asking for help.
And diversity. So the political parties in Australia are the Roos and the Koalas, right, Hayden? Are you a Roo or a koala?
No, I always vote independent.
Oh, okay. So no bamboo. He's not a bamboo eater, So that's good to know. So I think that about wraps up our talk on Ben Interrupted. It was really good. The only thing I really missed out on this episode was I was hoping that it would be like that Deep Space Nine episode or that Buffy episode where Ben was just in the mental institution the whole time. And I thought that was going to come about because of the song Life Could Be a Dream, Sweetheart, at the beginning. But no. Overall, a good episode, a great episode. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. So for the Quantum Leap podcast, I'm Albie. You're next, Hayden.
I always go last.
Juan.
I'm Juan.
And I am fat, hairy, blind, and I never leave my hole. I am Hayden McQueenie, the mole.
And we'll see you next time.